welcome back to this final video of the whole series. In this video, we are going to connect our front end with the back end. So in the previous two videos, in the first part, we did our server, and then we did our client, which is the front-facing React application. And in this video, we are going to connect these two together so we can interact with the server from our front end. For those who are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe right now because 90% of the people are not subscribed to the channel. That's like a lot of numbers. So make sure you do subscribe, turn on the notification, like the video, and comment down below what you want to see in the future and how you like this project, how yours came up. As you know, this is like a passion project. So if you want to like have your own touch to it, you can do that. You can add your own styling to it, of course. But yeah, this is just a tutorial project. It's not like a full-fledged application that you can actually make a startup with. But yeah, it's for learning purpose. This is a great, I think, a great series to work with. So just a brief recap of in the first series, we did our server. So we did some verified token, we did some auth, a lot of like authentication and a lot of route too. So we did have like a user, we have auth, we have tweets, and then in that we have all the routes in there that can handle and do different things. And then we have our controller that actually the functionality where we handle all the function when we hit certain routes. And then we have the model right here where we have our data, right? So that's the basics of our backend. And then we kind of like went into the front end. We did like a React application. We used Tailwind to style our app, very similar to our Twitter styling. And then we had some React router version 6 to like kind of like handle all the routes. And to start things off, I think we're gonna start looking into the front end side of things and then connect to the back end. So first thing we are going to be doing is handling the sign in, because in order to work with our user, we first need to sign in the user. And after that, we're gonna start bringing in Redux. So that's going to be a cool part of this application. We're going to use Redux to do our state management. And also we are going to be using a Firebase a little bit to upload profile pictures for our user. So that's going to be in the very last part of it. So starting off, we're starting with a sign in, of course. But before we dive into it, we need to go to the package.json on our front end application. So we have the client, and then we go to our package.json. I am going to do something called a proxy in here because we don't want to, every time we call an API, we don't want to do the HTTP/localhost all over again. So we just want to be a very shortcut way to call our backend server. So I'm going to use this proxy. And here I'll call in our backend localhost port, which is 8000/API. So this is basically our backend server port. And in here, when you go to the index, you can see 8000. So when we go to the 8000, we hit our backend and it goes to API call. All our route is in the API. So we kept it in there as well. So we don't have to recall this whole URL again and again. So we have it in the proxy. Our front end knows what to hit when we hit when we fetch our data. So that's out of the way. Next thing we are going to be doing is going to the sign in, of course. So let's go in here. I'll clear up my terminal here. And first thing we are going to be doing how to handle this. So I'm in the client route, and then I'm going to do is npm start. So we have a visual understanding of the sign-in page here. And open up the browser in here. So we have the route loaded up and we have it in the browser. Let's log out, and then you see this is the sign-in page. So we have username and password. Once we hit the sign in, we should be able to sign in our user. So in order to do that, we need to handle a regular form, right? So we have input, and then we need to know some kind of a use state to get like the username, password, and then we have to do on submit in here or on click for the button to do the handle login. So first, let's bring in use state from our React, and then we're gonna create a couple of use state in here. So I have a use state snippet, and I'll call it user name, and then it should be empty. And then I'll use another snippet, say password, which is going to be empty as well. So we have that, and next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come to the input and handle our on change. So whenever there is an on change, what we want to do is the value of event, and then set username is target.value, e.target.value. So whatever we type in is going to be changed into here. So this functionality will change the username to whatever we type in. Same thing we're gonna do is on the password as well. So in here we just gonna do password, and we have that handle. Next we're gonna do is right here. We're gonna do is on click. Once we click that, we're gonna do handle login. So let's type in the functionality on there as well. So the way to do is create a function login dot, and in here we're gonna do is we're gonna have a async await, because we're gonna do some fetch to API. So it's a form, so I will do is a e.prevent default right there, and we are going to do our first fetch in here. But before we do that, we don't have an Axios, so let's install our Axios in our project. So cd client npm install Axios. We are going to use the Axios to fetch our data, so let's install that to this small package. And then once we have that, we are going to be bringing in the Axios in here. Import Axios from Axios there, and in here again we saw async await, so we're gonna do async. And then here we're gonna do is our first fetch of our data. Let's see if it will work. So we're gonna post our authentication sign in, and in here I'm gonna do is /auth. I'm gonna show you why am I doing this in a second. So sign in, and in here we're gonna need some data from our input, which is going to be right here. So username and password will be added in our Axios post request, and that should be it. So we have that, and we're going to do is catch, of course, otherwise it's throw an error. So let's console log error just in case. So we have that. So what we're doing over here, I'll go over one more time so we understand clearly what's happening. So in our server, we have auth API /auth. We're going to the auth. We have this in here. So remember in the proxy, we did like a API, and that's where we stop. So next part, when we do the auth, it's going to be like this. So we are doing this part in here. So /auth /sign in. So we're going over to our server. We're going to the auth, and then we're doing this right here. So the sign in. So sign in. And then in the sign in, remember we have a controller, and the controller, we are looking for a couple of data. We're looking for a username, which is request.body. This request.body is going to be right over here. So whatever we pass in here is going to be in request.body. So if we do a username, it's going to be request.body username, request.body.password. And once we pass that in, we are able to log in our user with the functionality we did last time. So it check the password, it sign in the user, and then it's give back a cookie to our browser, and it also give back the data. So that's what we are testing over here on the front end. So we have the data on the REST. So let's console log just in case, see if it works. So I'll do is console log REST, and then in here I'll do REST.data. So we have that. But before we do that, we have the front end working, right? We have the front end open on our browser. We also need to start our server, because if we don't start the server, it will not work. We won't be able to make the request. It will fail because the server is not on. So I'm going to do is go to the server, cd server, and npm start in here. So we got our server running. Let's try logging in. Make sure we have a console login there, and let's do run w. Oops, shouldn't be a backtick. And then run w. Turn on the console log again. Sign in. It says e.prevent default. Oh, I think it should be capital T in here. Okay, so that's a small mistake. So we did a sign in now. So once I click again after fixing this, you see it giving me back a username, and it's giving me back the email, password, and all the stuff that Ron have on his database right over here. So Ron W FD4 is the last 3 digit, FD4. So it's returning the right user. But the thing is, right now we don't have a state, so we can't really, like if we refresh it, the user is gone. So we can't really hold that user into our state. So we need to implement some kind of a Redux to hold the user in. And then once we go to other pages, we can still have Ron in there, and we can like calculate his data on other pages as well. So we are going to be implementing Redux right now. So we can, of course, have a state of the user. So we know who's logged in, and we have his data in store in our state, and we can like navigate with his data in there. So for those of you who haven't done Redux before, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I also have a tutorial on my channel which shows all over regular Redux to Redux toolkit. So if you're new to Redux, make sure you watch that tutorial and come back in here to get a clear understanding. If not, I will also explain what I'm doing on the way, so it makes total sense if you're not familiar with Redux. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the Redux toolkit, and I'll have to install some packages, of course. So I'm gonna go to cd client, ready to install the packages. And in here you see we have install Redux toolkit. We also need React Redux as well, because we are going to be connecting our React app with the Redux. So right here on a quick start, we can see npm install at redux.js/toolkit and React Redux. So I'm going to copy that and install that over here. So npm install at redux.js/toolkit. That's one of the package. That's the toolkit package, and the other one is React Redux, which basically connect our React application to the Redux state management. So once we have that installed, I'm going to go back to my package to see if it's there. So we have React Redux, and we have a toolkit installed. So perfect. So in order to create our Redux store, we have to create a new folder in here, and on the source, I'm going to call it Redux. And in here, we're going to create a slice. So I will call it user slice.js. And in the slice is basically, we are creating a Redux toolkit in here, like just as it shows over here. We configure the store. We're going to do that in a little bit once we create the slice. And we're going to configure our index shortly. But here is creating the slice. So slice is basically our store state itself. So we have an initial state, and then we have a slice, create slice here, where we create some reducer which is going to change some functionality of our state. So if a user login, it's going to add the user to our state, and we have a reference to of this user to in our state. So we can like point to our state and see, oh, Ron is logged in. So we can use Ron data to navigate into different pages and calculate some of the result as well, using his ID, using his email, or whatever we have in his state. So that's the point in this. So that's the regular overview. So we're gonna do is create slice. We're gonna import create slice from our Redux toolkit, and then we're gonna call our initial state. I'll make sure I spell it correctly. Initial state is equal to, so we're gonna have a current users and in the current user is going to be null because first we don't have a user logged in. Then it's loading. We're gonna call it false, which is for loading our user in, and then we have an error, which is going to be a false as well. So after the initial state, what we're going to do is we're going to export const user slice is equal to create slice. This is where we bring in our Redux toolkit, and in here we're gonna call our name. We just call it user, and in that we're gonna pass in our initial state. So make sure the initial state is spelled correctly. Like if we have a misspelled, it won't work because it's usually like a destructuring method, because create slice have an initial state property. So we want to make sure it's the right initial state. So I destructure it right there. And then we have a reducer here to kind of update our state. So first thing we're gonna do is a logging start. So we're gonna start logging in once the user click the login button, and in here we're gonna do a state, which is basically bringing in our initial state, and then we're gonna update state dot is loading is equal to true. So once the user start logging in, the loading becomes true, and after that we're gonna do a logging success. That means the logging has been success. Now this will have a couple of things, state and an action. So action is whatever we're passing in our action, dispatch action. So once we do a dispatch on the sign in, we can pass in some data. The action is basically that data what we are passing in. So if the user, if the run, we get the run data in here, we're gonna pass in run data with our action. So we can update the state in here. So first thing we're gonna do is state. We're gonna turn off our loading. It's loading because if the logging is successful, we don't need to be loading anymore. And then we're gonna do is update our current user to action.payload. So basically, we are changing our current user to run. So once we hit, let me go back to my app. So once we hit the sign in, right? Ron W is sending me Ron's data back. What we are going to do in here is like once we get the Ron data back after we sign in, we want to pass the data into our state using this action. And once we have passed it in the action, we call this the action. The current user will be updated with the action.payload. The payload is basically the data inside the action, which is Ron, all the data in here. So we're gonna change current user to this, which is basically this right here. So it can be a little confusing, but once we start implementing the front end side of things, it will make a lot of sense. If you're confused right now, I totally get it. Again, you can check my Redux tutorial out. I have in-depth tutorial on Redux, so that will definitely help. But this will make sense in a little bit. Just bear with me. So next thing we're gonna do is logging failed. So if the logging fails somehow, we're gonna update the error. So we're gonna do is state loading is false and error is true. So loading is basically false at that time because we're done loading something, we got back something. So loading, we turn off the loading and then we change the error to true. The other one is going to be log out, which is basically we are logging out some of our user. And in here, we're going to return initial state, which is basically going to be null, false, false. The null going to be no user in the state. So it's going to return that and log out a user. So there's that. After that, once we do that, we are going to exporting our action, which is basically all the reducer in here. So we're going to start naming all that, and it's equal to user slice dot action. So this action is basically the functionality that we can use on the front end. So if we're trying to logging start, we can use this logging start action to do all this functionality inside we just typed in. So that's out of the way. We also need to export the reducer itself. So default user slice dot reducer. So this is the main reducer, which will help our connect our store together. So once we do that, we can go back to our file and create a file called store.js. So it's in the Redux folder again. In here, I'll import a couple of things, configures store and combine reducer. You don't actually need combine reducer in this tutorial, but in case if you have more reducer, more user slice, you can just to combine the reducer kind of. So that's out of the way. We need to import our reducer as well. So user reducer from user slice, right? So we're gonna bring in this part in our store. So once we have those two together, we can do is const root reducer is equal to combine reducer, and in here we're gonna do is user is equal to user reducer. So combine reducer gonna have something called user placeholder, which is basically our user reducer, and you can have multiple reducer over here since we are combining a reducer. Just in case if you have a complex application, you can basically add more reducer to it. So once we have the root reducer in place, we're gonna do is const store is equal to configure store, and in here we're gonna do is we're gonna name something called reducer, and reducer is basically going to be root reducer right here. So whatever the root reducer, we pass in on to store root reducer, and after that we are going to be exporting the store. So export const store. So we are exporting the store over here. Just to recap again, we create a slice exported some action with a const, and default is exported our default reducer. So once we have that on hand, we bring in the reducer, which is like the default export, and we combine using combine reducer into our root reducer variable, and we then create a store. We configure the store and pass that root reducer into the reducer. So that's our reducer Redux store ready to go. But right now, all we work with only this. So we didn't work with this. So we need to connect our React application to the Redux. So we created our Redux, all good to go. Now we need to come back to our Redux application and connect the store together. So all we do that by going to our most root element in our React folder, React project, which is the index. And in here, we bring in a couple of things. First thing is a provider. This is coming from React-Redux we just installed, which is basically connect React with Redux. And then we are also going to bring in our store, which was a const, export const. So name export from Redux/store, right? So we have these two things. We have the store imported into our index, and then we imported a provider, which is from React-Redux. And what we do is we wrap this provider in this app. So provider, and we do that in the app. So right there. So we have the provider in there, and then we have a store is equal to store, which is passing in the store as the props, and we're wrapping it into our app. That's it. So we have our Redux in place. That's great, but we are not doing any functionality. We are not using any of this. Let's go back to here. We're not using any of this yet. So let's start using that in our front end. So in order to do that, we also need a couple of things in our front end. We need to do some kind of dispatch. So use dispatch. This is coming from React-Redux. So we have our use dispatch. So what we are going to be doing is when we try logging in, we are going to do is logging start in here. Once the logging success, we're going to do a logging success, which is logging start and logging success, and then the error handling will do the logging failed. So that's the target. So in order to do that, we also need to bring in those actions. So I will do import from, go back, we have to go back one step, two step out of the page, and then we have to do is Redux, and then we have to do user slice. So logging start, logging success, and then we also need logging failed. So we have those in there. Let's use dispatch. So in here, we're gonna initialize our dispatch, which is const dispatch is equal to use dispatch. So we initialize our dispatch right there. And then we need to use this dispatch to do all this functionality, reducer functionality. So when we start the logging form function, we need to dispatch our logging start. Now this one doesn't take in any action. We're not passing in any action. It's just a function itself because it just start the loading, no action. So we just do that. And then after that, when we do our login, we are completing our login. We need to dispatch a success, logging success. So right here, we do is logging success and then pass in the data. So rest.data, whatever we got in here, I'll take that off. And then once we do that data, we are good to go. And then after the fail, if it fails, we're gonna do is logging fail in here. So dispatch logging fail, and we're not passing in any action in there as well. So it's like logging fail is equal to error. That's it. Error is true. So that's out of the way. We are bringing in our user slice Redux to work with and use a state management tool. So that's good. Let's go back to our browser. I have a Redux dev tools. So this is like a dev tool for our Redux application. I hope it's working properly. Redux Chrome extension. This is the tool. It looks like it's not loading for me. I'll remove it and add it again. So once we have that, let's open that up to the right. So make sure you install this Redux DevTools. It's a featured product on the Chrome extension. So once we have that, we will be able to see the diagram of our store really nicely in this using this tool. So let's go back again and open that up. So we have nothing going on right now. It's like init, nothing going on. Let's do run w, sign in, logging start, logging success. That was pretty quick. And then you see it worked exactly how we wanted. So in our state, we have a current user right now. So when the logging start, it changed the loading to true, which we wanted. And then when the logging success, it turned the loading to false and then added the user in our current user. So you see user objects is in there. So run w was added into our current user. So that is great. It's working exactly how we wanted. And now the part about the next thing is we want to implement other functionalities, right? So we have a sign up functionality too, which is going to be very similar. But in order to do that, we also need to do one more thing. Like once we do our, once it's success, we want to navigate to the home page. So we need to bring something from our user router. So we're going to do this right here, import use navigate from React router DOM. And then we also need to initialize this as well, just like the dispatch. So use navigate, we initialize that. And once the logging success, we want to navigate to our home page. So let's try that on our front end one more time. Run w, sign in, and it navigates to our home page. Perfect, exactly what we want. And this is great. So we have the handle logging set up. The next we're gonna do is handle sign up, which is going to be right down here. So we have one additional step in here, which is the email. So let's start on that. So I'll do is copy paste the same thing. So username is text, so username, set username is third, and then we have a password. Let's do password in here, And we need to do one more thing. We need to do a set email in here too. So all I'll do is use state snippet email set email, which is going to be basically empty and of course as well. So in here we are going to be doing a very similar thing on change. We're gonna change set email. Oops. And then target the email and set password is all done. And then in here we're gonna do is on click. We're gonna handle the sign up for this time. So let's go back to our functionality and start making that happen as well. It's going to be very similar as well. So could be an exercise for you guys. You can pause the video and try to implement this sign up functionality and come back again to finish the functionality together. So I'll do is handle sign up async function as well, because we're going to do some fetching post request e.prevent.default. I don't want this. So once we have that event.prevent default, we're going to do is dispatch. Remember, we have dispatch initialized on the top, so we can use in this here as well. So logging start. After that, we're going to do a try catch as well. So very similar thing we're going to be doing. The catch block. So if it catches an error, we're going to do is dispatch logging failed like that. And then on a try, we're going to do is const rest to go to await axios.post. And in here, we are doing is /auth/sign up. And we are passing in couple of data. We are passing in username, we are passing in email, we are also passing in password, which is great. So remember, one more time again on our auth, we have a sign up and the sign up controller. We're getting password, we're also getting the email and then signing up the user with that. So that's the functionality on the sign up. So we have the sign up ready. And then what we're going to do is we are going to dispatch over here and call it logging success and res.data. So what we're data in here, we're going to log in success and kind of sign that user in as well. So once we've done the sign in, we're going to do the sign in the user in, and we're creating a new user with a post request right there. And then of course we'll navigate to our home page as well. So that's out of the way. Let's try doing this on our front end. So log out. And we're going to do is here. Let's do is harmony @gmail.com. The same username. And sign up. That means it was a success. Let's go back to, I'm not sure the diagram worked actually. So we have the diagram in here and it's sign up username Hermione. That's great. And then let's go back to our database, refresh the database. See, it's updated on the database. So we have Hermione on our database as well. Hermione Gmail, Hermione as well. So that's working well. So the signing page is done. We handle all that really well. We were able to log in our existing user. We were also able to sign up a new user onto our platform, which is great. So once we are done with the sign-in page, I want to show you one more thing that we need to be working on is this. So once we log out, right, and then log in with Ron W, sign in, it works great, right? But now if we try to refresh the page, it disappears. So we need to implement something called Persist on our Redux side of things. So they have something called Persist data. Let's see, Persist. So we're going to be using this in our store. It's going to be a little bit of configuration, but we really need this to persist our data. So a little bit of simple configuration. So what we are going to be doing is we're going to bringing in everything from here. So copy the persist functionality into our store. Once we have that, we are going to be configuring this as well. So const persist config, we have that. I think on the tutorial side they have something to copy this. So this is like a basic configuration for persist config. And then we need to do this. We need to create a persisted reducer. So I'll bring that in after the root reducer, and in that I'll pass in the root reducer, which is this right here. So the persist reducer is basically persist reducer taking in the config, and is also passing in the root reducer right here. So after that, we need to do a little bit of configuration. Instead of passing in the root reducer straight up, we need to pass in the persisted reducer. And then we need some kind of middleware to configure that. So I'll just copy that middleware from there. And in here, we need to do is export const persister is equal to persist store, which is basically going to take in the store and there. So we have that persisted store exported. So this is basically a configuration. One more time, I'm taking recapping this. So once we refresh the page, the state disappear. This configuration will help retain our state. So we are basically using this to do that. So Redux persist. So we just copy pasted this, we copy paste the config, and then we kind of like use our persisted reducer, and we pass that reducer instead of the root reducer on the configure store. And then we pass in the middleware, which is basically taking in all this persistence functionality in here. And then we export the persister store. Now what we do is we go back to our index and we kind of implement our persister store in here. So I'll bring in a couple of things. We need to bring in persist gate. Now this is coming from Redux persist. So right here, we need to do this. Import that from our persister. And then we also need to import our persister that we exported from our store. So right here from Redux/store. So we have that, which is basically coming from right here. So that's out of the way. We need to do is after the provider, I'm going to do is persist gate loading is equal to null, and then persister is equal to persister that we brought in here. So once we have that, we're good to go, and I'll close that out over here. So once we have that working, it's showing us an error for this Redux persist because we imported something from there, but we don't have that library or package installed. So what we have to do is we have to go to the client one more time and install npm install Redux persist. /integration/react, and I have to restart it, or restart the server on the front end side of. And once we have that restarted, we're going to log that user in one more time and see if it retains the value. So start, no problem. Let's bring in our look like it's persisting it right now. So you see it's persisting our user, which is great. It's working well. Let's log in using Hermione. So we have the Hermione. Let's refresh the page. We have that loaded in as well. So it's been hydrated and it's working. So that's out of the way. We are good to go. So we have the persisted user state management implemented in our store. Again, there's a lot of code in here. So if you want to refer to this exact code, I will have a link down in to my GitHub down below, so you can like go and check it out. So once we have that, we should be good to start implementing our other feature on other pages. So sign in is done. I'll close that up. I'll go to the home page. We need to check some things on the home page. So we need to make sure our user is logged in. If the user is logged in, we're gonna show them everything in the home page. If the user is not logged in, they shouldn't be able to see this page. So we should be showing them sign in instead. So in order to do that, we need to bring in a couple of things again. From the Redux, we need to bring in the selector. So use selector from React-Redux. And we also need to bring in a navigate functionality as well there. So remember on the sign-in page, we use something called use dispatch, which is basically used for dispatching some action to our store, to our Redux store. What selector does is it just go to the store and then it goes to the state, find the state, that's it. So it doesn't make any changes to the state. So we are not going to be using the dispatch. We are just referring to the state. In this case, we are referring to the state and see if user is logged in. If the user is inside this, we can show them all this. If there's no user in here, we are not going to show them this. So that's what selector does. It just go to the store, find the user, that's it. So in our home, we're going to do is const current user is equal to use selector state, and here state dot user. So we are actually doing user dot current user, but we are we are like destructuring this part, because on the user slide, you know, there's state, and inside the state is current user. So we are destructuring that using this method right here. So we don't need this anymore. So we have that current user in place. Let's console log user is equal to current user. Let's see if it's console logging anything at all. So it says we have max length invalid DOM property. Look like we have some problem on the sign in. Let's fix that first. I think it was max length somewhere in here, or it was on a component, I believe, the MainTweet component. It's max, it should be capital L. So once we have that, let's refresh this. That's gone. So right now we have current user and we have Hermione logged in, which is perfect. So our state have Hermione logged in, and this use selector is basically bringing out the current user, whatever we have in here. So whatever we have in the current user after the payload. So we have Hermione in here, and it's just bringing that out so we can use it in the front end side of things. And we have Hermione in, so that's good. So that means we have a user logged in. So what we are going to be doing is we have the user in here, so we can like play around with some ternary operators. So make sure if you have a user logged in, we show them this. If the user not logged in, we're showing them the sign-in page. So I'm going to bring in the sign-in page in here as well. So import sign-in from sign-in/sign-in, and in here we're gonna do is this, and gonna cut all this, and in here we're gonna do the conditional. So if there's no current user, we are going to be showing in the sign-in, but if there is a user logged in, we're gonna show them all the other stuff. So that's out of the way. Let's do this. I think we don't have the log out functionality yet, but if we try to go to the home again now, so we need to log out the user, because we still have the state in there. So we need the log out functionality. So in order to do that, let's go to the left hand bar. So we create an on click in here, click, handle log out. Now it should be pretty straightforward as well. Remember, we do is const handle log out. Now we need to bring in dispatch and the logout reducer action from our store. So import use dispatch and import let's see, log out from user slice. In here we're gonna do is dispatch. We need to initialize this, so dispatch is equal to use dispatch, and in here we're gonna do is log out. This is basically in our store, which is this, so it's returned the initial state, which is nothing. So that's log out our user. So let's try that out. So we have Hermione logged in. Let's bring that in. So we have Hermione logged in. Let's type in the logout. Once we log out, no user is there. So let's try to go back to our home page. It's going to the SignIn page instead. So it's not going to the home page anymore because there's no user. So that's great. That functionality is working as expected, which is cool. And let's see what else we need. So homepage is done. We don't need this part, of course. Can take that out as well. So next page we are going to be doing is, once we log in, let's say run w, we are logged in, and then we need to fetch all the user tweets, the run timeline tweets and everything. So we also have a profile that we need to work with, and yeah. So let's start with our main tweet, so we can like tweet something in here. So I'll go back to the main tweet and start adding the functionality in here. We need a timeline tweet that fetch all the tweets for Ron, and everyone Ron is following in here. So let's do that first. Actually, it makes a lot more sense that way. So timeline, let's create something, a component called timeline tweet. And here we call timeline tweet.jsx. Simple timeline component. Now in here we're gonna do a couple of things. We're gonna fetch the data, and we're gonna use the use effect to fetch the data. And remember, we can always refer to our store to see who's logged in. So we need that part, of course. So we need like a use selector from React-Redux, and then we also need a tweet. So every tweet, we need a styling guide. So we have every tweet how it's going to display it in here instead of just timeline. But before we do that, let's start fetching the data, see if it's working as we want. So import Axios from Axios, and that's good. And in here we are going to be doing is use effect, which we're gonna bring it from here. Use state as well, and we are gonna create a timeline. Use set timeline, and here we're gonna do is use state is equal to null. And we are also, that's it. So we're gonna fetch the data on the use effect on the first load, and we're gonna set it into the timeline. And in here we need a couple things as well. We need current user. So let's bring that current user in. Is equal to use selector date dot user. So we go to user, we find the current user, and we want to fetch the data from the current user. So it's like dynamic. So on the user effect, we want to create a function called fetch data, and we're gonna call it a async function. Now, why I'm doing this, creating a function instead of making this a sync, because you cannot make useEffect function as sync. You need to create a separate functionality, which is a async await functionality. So that way it works, because that is not doable. We cannot do that. So this is why I'm creating a separate function in here called async await. And in here, we're gonna do the try catch error, that. So try, we're gonna do is const timeline tweets is equal to await axios.get. We're gonna get all the tweets, and in here we're gonna do a backtick, and here we're gonna do is tweet dash timeline slash current user dot underscore ID. Remember, the user ID stays in underscore ID, and then you just fetch that. So just to recap on this part, I know I keep going back and forth, but I really want to make sure everyone understand what we're doing. So we are going to the tweets route, and we are going to the timeline in here. And after going to the timeline, we are hitting the user ID, which is right here. So it's basically taking the ID and find the user, all the tweet the user follows and whatnot. So we did that functionality on the backend portion of our video. So we're doing that. We're just getting all the tweets, timeline tweet for this current user, so Ron, right now. And after that, we are doing a set timeline is equal to timeline tweets dot data. So that's out of the way. So we have that, and we also want to console log error is equal to error. So that's there. And we also want to call that. So after this is done, we want to call that function fetch data, and we only want to load this. We don't want to load this every time when there's some data in here, like ID in there. So that's good. I think that should be working. So we can console log some timeline in here, right? Timeline right there. So we are bringing that timeline in capital L there. So let's go back to our timeline tweet. Pick that up. Use selector there. Make sure everything's good. After that, we want to bring that timeline tweet into our main tweet in here. So I'll do this timeline tweets there. Bring it in, and go back to our profile. Go to console log. So Ron only seems to have one tweet. That's it. And that's good. I think he's not following anyone, so the other tweets are not available yet, but we're gonna see that functionality shortly. So how do we display this tweet in here? So in the timeline tweet, we're gonna create another component that only handle tweets. So in here, we're gonna create a component tweet, single tweet. That's oops. So we have the tweet component ready to go, and in here we are going to be showing all the tweets, when the tweet was made and everything. So it's going to be pretty fun part of this exercise. So we have that tweet in there, and right here we are going to be doing some session. So I'll do div.empty, that's being our tailwind. And here we are going to do is timeline. If the timeline exists, then we're gonna map timeline dot map tweet, and in here we're gonna do return, and in here we're gonna do is key is going to be tweet dot key. We have a unique key, And class name, we're gonna add a little bit of padding in there, so padding of 2. And in here, we are going to bring in our tweet. So go back again, but we have some error. It's fine. We're not doing the model in here. Going to tweet and just bringing that in. So we around have 1 tweet. That's good. So we need to implement that. Of course, how we're going to destructure the tweet. Now this can be a little complicated because we want to make it dynamic. We want to be this portion to be reusable in profile. We want to be reusable in other places of the site, like Explore tab as well. So it shouldn't be only be used over here. So we're gonna make it a little bit more dynamic. So for the purpose of making it dynamic, we want to pass in all the tweet. So single tweet need to be passed in here. And we also want to set data is equal to that timeline. Now we're going to use this later because we want to use it in different places, and we want to refresh when somebody makes some changes. So if Ron makes a tweets in here, his new tweets should be available in here as well. So we are passing in this so we can like refresh this data or this page again. So let's go back to our tweets. Now here we're going to do a couple of things. Let's start making it happen. We're going to do is flex space of x of 2, and then we're going to do as an image. This is going to be the profile image. We don't have any image right now, so we can basically ignore this part. And then we are going to be doing is a link to our each profile. 2 is equal to, remember we have a couple of things in here. We're bringing in tweet, and we're also bringing in that data. Now for this part, we want this to be dynamic one more time. So we need a couple of things. We need to make sure we have our user data. So we create something, we bring in the current user on this one as well. So let's bring in use selector. Use selector. And here we do our current user. We go to use selector. State is state.user right there. So we have a current user bring in. And then we also want to do is we want to have some for each user data. So the tweets have a user, and we want to make sure we bring in that user data as well. So const user data is set user data, and then we use state in here as well. So bring that in. State. Now this part is for different user. So this tweet is not going to be only Ron's tweet. It could be any other people's tweet as well. So we want to make sure we're dynamic in that sense. So we're bringing in the logged in user. We also need to bring in some user who are making this tweet. So in that case, we are going to be doing is a use effect. Again, it's going to be similar functionality. So const fetch data async. So async. And here we are going to be doing the try catch inside here as well. The console log error, and then we're gonna fetch the find the data. So find user of the tweet. So it could be Hermione's tweet as well. So we need to find the user tweet. So how we do that? We do is axios.get user dot find slash tweet dot user ID. So one more time, this can be a little confusing because we're trying to make it super dynamic, and we are going to be doing a lot of conditional in here. So just to recap, we are passing in the tweets in here. So it could be tweet of Ron, Hermione, Harris, any user, and they have their own individual tweet. What we are going to do is we're going to find the individual user information. So we're going to find user, and their ID is going to be in this tweet. So we're gonna find that using this. So tweet is passed in as a prop. We're bringing that the user ID, and we're finding the user ID, user information for the tweet, for the owner of that tweet. So we can like grab their information as well. So once we have that, we're gonna do set user data. So find user dot data. So we have their information saved in here. That's good. And then we need to call in the fetch data in here, and it's going to be only load in when tweet.user ID changes, or if the like changes, like somebody like a tweet, we want this to refresh as well, so we can upgrade the individual like. So that's good. We have that implemented. Next, we are going to do is handle a couple of things. So we are going to fetch this. So link slash profile slash user data dot underscore ID. We need to bring that link from React Router DOM. So import link from React Router DOM. Should be working. Now this should only load if the user exists. So user data exists, otherwise it shouldn't be working at all. So I would do is div, put this all in here, and we make a conditional in here. So user data exists, then we should be, so we have this. So if the user data exists, then we should be able to do all this. If not, it shouldn't be. We don't have a user, we shouldn't have any of the tweet as well. So in the link, we're gonna have our username. So h3 user data dot username. And here, let's add some classes as well. One bold. Go back. So we have a username. So we click the username, we go to the Ron profile. So that's exactly what we want, which is great. After that, we want to do is a span dot font normal at user data dot username, and then we add a p, and then we do like a date when it was updated. So for this part, we're gonna use a package called date format date, and we're gonna format the date from our MongoDB. So our MongoDB have some user and when the tweet was created, and we're gonna try to format the date. We're gonna take this, we're gonna format the date in our front end fashion, so we can like show them to the user. We can't show this to the user. We only need to show them like 6 seconds ago, 1 minute ago, 1 day ago. So we want to update this into that and show them into the front end. So we're going to use a library on the front end. We are in the front end called date FNS. So for those who are not familiar with date FNS, it's like a library that help provide the most commonly a simple consistent toolkit for manipulating JavaScript date and time. And it's super easy to use, so I really like this. So we are going to be bringing that in here as well. So we're going to do is import or format distance from date FNS slash format distance, which is good. So once we have that, we want to create a string in here called const date str is equal to format distance. Now remember, each tweet have like a time, so we're gonna take that new distance. We're gonna create tweet dot created at, which is basically bringing from the Mongodb or database to database, and we are going to create a new date for that. Now that's out of the way. This is basically formatting the distance between this with a new date. This is basically a functionality from the library. So if you can read more about the library, if you want to see how that works. I think there's some error. It should be closing in here. So there, that. And then we need to bring this into our here. So every time, for every tweet, we're calculating the distance, the time, like 6 days ago, 7 days ago, 1 hour ago, using the data from our database, and it's passing in here. Let's go back to the front end. 23 days ago, just a long time ago, I kind of started this project. So we have that in there. Let's complete this part, and then we do a P, and then here we do tweet dot description. So of course, if you're doing the project right now, it should have different date, like 1 day ago, a couple of minutes ago, 1 hour ago. It depends. So that's how it is. So next we're gonna do this button. The description is basically the tweet. I have spider. And then on the button, we're gonna have a couple of things in here. We're gonna have the like button. So let's do the like in here. So tweet dot likes dot includes current user dot underscore ID. If the current user ID is in there, we are going to be changing some icon. So let's bring in some icon. I'm gonna bring in import favorite border icon from MUI icon. So these are icons in the MUI Meta icon library. So you can like go to the website and find any icon you like, but I'm using this specific one. And then I'm going to also import a favorite icon from this favorite. It's just going to be favorite. So we have those icons in place. And let's go back in here. So if the current user is liked this, we're gonna have the favorite icon. If he didn't like it yet, we're gonna have a border icon because it's gonna show it's not liked yet. So that's the functionality we're gonna implement. So favorite icon. So we're gonna add some class name as well. So mr2 margin top bottom of 2 and cursor would be pointer. That's out of the way. Then we're gonna have another. This is gonna be the border one, and then we're gonna have the same class as well. So just copy paste that. So again, one more thing. If the tweeter, the tweet's going to be an array. So basically, it's an array. The likes going to be an array, and we're gonna go through the likes. We're gonna loop through the array, and we're gonna find if the current user, the logged in user, have liked this tweet. If we have liked this tweet, we're gonna show them this icon. If they haven't liked it yet, we're gonna show them this icon. So let's go back to the front end. So I didn't like it yet. If I click on this, it should change it to this. So we're gonna implement that feature right now. So we can do, let's do tweet likes dot length as well in there. So 0 likes in there. So we haven't implemented the on click. So we will just do the like functionality on here. Handle like, and then I'm implementing that part of it. So const handle like is equal to, well, this is going to be an async function because we're going to do some fetching to the server, and then with the event default, I don't need all that, so that's good. Now we're going to do a try catch. So on the try, we're going to do is const like is equal to await axios. Do we have access in here? Axios dot put, which is basically updating, and then backtick. I'm going to do tweet slash tweet dot underscore ID. So we're going to the specific tweet, and then we're adding in a like in there, and in here we're gonna passing in the ID of our current logged in user, because their ID will be passed in to the array of like. Remember, we did this functionality in the backend project, so you can go back and look at it, but we are basically passing in the ID, so this ID gets liked in. Let's just check that out on the functionality. So I'm logged in as Ron. I like this. Refresh this. It's liked, one liked in there. The icon changes as well. That is good. It's working as expected. Now we shouldn't be refreshing this every time we like it. It should does it automatically for us. We're gonna implement that feature shortly. So I clicked it again, and it's unliked. So we are working with it. It's great. So right now we are going to do is we're gonna pass in some data. So remember, we did this set data such as timeline. So that's why it's not refreshing it. So when we do that, the data doesn't refresh because we haven't updated this timeline data. So remember, we pass in the set data, set timeline. We're gonna use that in here. So every time we like, we're gonna bring in some location. So only in the few location we want to refresh this, and that is going to be coming from our React router. So we have the React router. We're going to do is use location, and let's go back in here. And what we do is when we do a like, if the location includes, let's say, profile, we are going to do a const new data is equal to await axios.get. Here we're gonna do is tweet slash user slash all. I'm gonna pass in the data onto the profile for this specific user, and we do set data is equal to new data set data. That's good. So after that, we're gonna do another one, if else, if the location includes explore, and then we're gonna do a similar thing in here, but this time we need to also initialize the location as well, because use location we initialize that. We can do that const location use location, and in here we are going to be doing is explore. So tweet hashtag right there /, and here we're going to be doing is explore. So we have a couple of these pages, and then next one is going to be for everything else. We are going to be doing is data is equal to just the tweet itself. So I'll wait that slash tweet slash timeline slash current user dot ID, and that data is new. I'll explain this in more depth in a minute. So what happening is here is when we go to our profile page, we are going to be doing this only. The explore page, we are going to be only fetching this data. If you're going to any other pages, like for example the home page, we are only going to be fetching the tweet itself. So whatever we did in here, we can do the similar thing onto our regular pages, our home pages, and we're going to change the new data in there. So when we like it, that like would be updated in this timeline, and we can like loop through that. For the profile and include, we are working with different set of tweets. We are not working with all the tweets. We're working with ExploreTweet. We're working with only the user tweet. So in that case, it will be a little bit different. We also need to be bringing in the user ID, which is coming from the params. So remember, when we go to the user profile, we have ID in here. So we're gonna bring that user ID from the user profile. So we're in the profile page and we're gonna put that in here. So for that, we need to do on the React router. So we're gonna do is params, and in here we are going to be doing is bringing that as well. So const ID is equal to use params. So we're bringing that ID from the params of our URL, and then we pass that in here to get the profile data. Once we have that out of the way, once we did that location, we need to do one more thing. We need to do like a path name in here, because use location won't reveal anything unless we do the path name. The path name is basically the location. I can do like a console login here to show you what I mean. So location. So we have some location. We have like a path name, and then you see it's like a home page right now. If you go to other pages, it will change the path name as well, so profile and other things. So if the path name includes this, so we have to do is dot path name. So once we have that, this should work. Let's go back one more time. So now when I like click on it, it updates itself. Click on it, update itself. So I don't have to refresh the page anymore. Why this is happening? Just to recap one more time for those, it can be a little confusing because we're doing a lot of dynamic thing in here, because we are changing the data. So right now we have it, we are on the home page. We haven't implemented anything on these pages yet, so it could be a confusing, but we can ignore this for now because we implement this in advance. But this is just a home page, so we are only using this one right now. So in the home page, if we change any after we did any we want to do this, which is basically going to the timeline, grabbing the user current user timeline tweets, and then changing the data. Now this data is coming from here, which is the set timeline, and it's basically changing the timeline to the newer timeline, which have new likes. So that way we are updating the likes. So we have this. So that's good. That's out of the way. We are done with the tweets for now. We're done with the timeline. Let's see if anything needs to be done on the timeline for now. I think we're good on the timeline as well. Now for the main tweet, we want to be able to write down any tweets and basically put that into our timeline. So we're going to implement that part of it. So this, we also need our current user. So right now we have no username. So let's bring some of those stuff as well. Import use selector from React-Redux. And we also need the Axios from Axios there. Let's bring in those current user. Go to use selector. State user. That's great. And then we also need to update this. So this should be current user dot username. Now this only will happen if the current user exists, of course. So we're gonna do is current user. If the current user exists, then we are going to be doing this part. We have that. Let's go back, check. So Ron W appearing over there. So he's the user who can type in any tweets. Now for the text area, we need to do like the use state. So we have use state. What to do is const tweet text set tweet text equal to user state, that one right there. And then we are going to be doing is on change to E. Anytime we change on the event, we want to set the state to the current value. This is max length of 280, so it makes sense. So that's good. Next we want to do is on click over here. On click is equal to handle submit, and we're gonna do the handle submit right over there. So once handle submit is equal to async. So you got event default, and then we want to do this try catch again. So this is where we are going to be posting the tweets into our database. So Axios comes into play again. Console log error there. And here we're going to do is a submit tweet. Oh wait, again, Axios.post. Here we're going to do is tweets. Gonna post that. And then for the body, we're doing an ID. This is going to be current user ID. So the user that is logged in from our state management, and description is going to be tweet text. Now we have the TimelineTweet already implemented, and this should be working as well. So let's try typing something in and see if it works onto our front end. So new tweet, trying out new tweet, trying out new tweet. To that, it should come into here, but we don't have that implemented here. So let's refresh it, and we have that trying out new tweet. So why didn't it refresh? So we didn't have that implement in here, so that's why it didn't refresh. So we can do in here is we can do window dot location, just a simple refresh after we submit a tweet will work out for now. So reload is false in there. So once we submit the tweet, we want to have like a reload of the whole page. So reload implemented tweet, and there we go. We have reload implemented, and that tweeted out as well. Now, what is happening again? So we are tweeting that into our database, and in the timeline tweet, we are grabbing that tweet of the current user. So once we hit that tweet, one more tweet get added to the user, and it does fetch it again because we have that implemented on here. So location, once we have that fetch, we want to be fetching that user timeline tweet again. So because of the reload, it does that, and we have the new tweet loaded in here. So that's good. I think we have a couple of the major functionality implemented. So we have like implemented, we have unlike implemented, we can tweet new things into our application. That's good. Right now we need to do some explore implementation, the homepage work as well. We need to also do the profile implementation as well. So let's do the explore first. Now we need to do the same thing again. The people won't be able to see this page unless they're logged in. So use selector from React-Redux, and here we are going to be doing is const current user equal to use selector the state, and here state dot user. So we have that, and then what we are going to be doing in here is that, and then here do is if there are no user, then we should show them the sign in only. But if they do have an user, you are going to be showing them this whole thing. That's implemented on the explore page. That is good. Now we go to the ExploreTweet and we start implementing our ExploreTweet. So this is going to be straightforward as well. We need the Axios from Axios. We also need to use selector to make sure we are bringing in the user information. And we also need tweet that we created. Remember, we made it dynamic, so we want to use that for the tweet, explore tweet. And in here, we need some use effect. Use effect. And also use state. And we need to create a use state snippet. I'll use the snippet this time. So the explore, and it should be null on that. We don't have anything on the explore tweet. We also need to bring in the user. So current user is equal to use selector dot user. So we have all those information loaded up. What we want to do in here is we want to do the use effect. Once we go to the explore page, we want to fire this in. Same thing, we want to fetch some data. Async function, then try catch in there. Console log that in case error. And for here, we're gonna do the await explore tweet. We'll await axios.get, and then here I'll do is tweet slash explore, and then here we'll do set explore is explore tweets dot data. Now remember, this is also implemented in the backend. I'll go over one more time. You have ExploreTweet, and ExploreTweet, it basically gets in all the tweets on the whole application, and it order using the like of the tweet. So we do that. We're doing that over there. So that's out of the way on the ExploreTweets. We have that working. Remember, we want to do this again. Current user user dot underscore ID, and then we also want to fetch data. So we have that loaded in, and once we do, it's going to update this explore, and then we want to display that over here. That's some margin in there, empty of 6, margin top of 6. In here, I'll do is explore if it exists. Then do explore.map tweet. Then we're gonna return div, let's say some key to that, so React knows which tweet we're referring to. Tweet ID, a class name of padding 2, and in here we're gonna bring in our tweet is equal to tweet, set data is equal to set explore. So now it becomes a lot more dynamic. So if anything changes on the explore tweet, we're going to do the fetch again. Now remember, on the timeline on the tweet, we made it even more dynamic on that side. So let's recap that one more time. So if we go to that, so it's bringing in set data, but this time the set data is different. This time the set data is explore, so it's going to only update this. So once we have that on the explore, once anything is liked on the explore, we're going to be fetching this set explore this time. So this set data is basically set explore, and we are updating that all the tweets, fetching that one more time. So that's how we are maintaining that. So let's go to the explore. We have tweets of everyone in there, which is good, and it's implemented using the like. So that is great. So home is loaded up. Explore is loading it up as well. Good. Now we need to do is profile, and that should be almost done. So there we have the profile. We didn't implement anything in here, so we're gonna do it over here this time because we want to make it a little bit more dynamic. When we do like an edit profile, something will open up. Make it a modal. So remember, when we go to the edit profile, we have an edit profile. When we click on edit profile, we can edit our images, profile images. So let's go back to the left-hand side sidebar one more time so we can navigate to that part of it. So in here, we have a profile. Now, in order to do that, we have to bring in use selector as well. So a current user should be able to current user is equal to use selector to make our selection dynamic and the link work at the same time. User, and whenever we go to the profile, we want to go to the user logged in user profile. So what we're going to do in here, we're going to make it dynamic as well. And here we're going to do is current user dot underscore ID. So let's go back in here. Let's go back to the home page, and then we go to profile. We're going to the ID profile right there. So now we start building out the profile section. So let's go back to here. Let's bring in some of the things that we need for this part. So we need use selector from React-Redux. We also need import Axios from Axios. We need some other component as well. So first thing first, let's start building it out. And here we're going to do an image. This is going to be the profile image. We don't have anything yet. And then we're going to do is we are only going to load in the current user data. So we have to make sure this user data is loaded up. So we need some things from React Router, which is called the params. So use params from React Router DOM. So we need to grab this. So we're using the React Router DOM use params to grab that. So let's const ID is equal to use params right there. And we need to fetch our profile and also fetch our user tweets. So we need to create a use state for that. So I'll do is use state and use state snippet there, user tweets, and then it should be null. Another use state snippet. I'll call this user profile, and then it should be null as well. And that's good. So we need to do our use effect after that. So bring that in use effect as well. Once we go to the profile, we want to fetch some data. Here we will do use effect. Try catch. Before we try catch, we need to do the function as always. Fetch data is equal to await Axios dot fetch. Now we need to do a couple of fetch. So do async function is equal to the function right there. That's good. And then we need to do some try catch in there. Let's say try and then catch error. That's somewhere there, handling. And then in the try catch, we are going to be fetching both things, the tweets and the profile. Let's do that. So find const user tweets equal to await axios.get. So we're getting all the tweets for this specific user, which is going to be tweets slash user slash all slash ID that we got from the params. And then we're going to do is cache the profile as well, user profile axios.get. User slash find an ID, so same ID as well. So we have that all good. Now we do is set user tweet to user tweet, so user profile to user profile. That's exactly what we want. And then after that, finishing up, we want to call that function. And we only want to load when the current user and ID changes. So that's out of the way. Let's see if this is working properly. But we don't actually have the current user in here, so let's bring that in. User is equal to use selector. So that's there. So once we have that all implemented, we can start making some changes onto our here. So if current user dot underscore ID is equal to ID, then we want to load everything, right? So we want to only show them this if this ID matches with the user that is logged in ID, so we can they can go to the profile. So that's what's happening over here. If not, we're gonna have something else. A button. Let's add some classes in there as well. The px4, py of 2, and pg blue 500. So background 500, rounded is full, and then text is white there. And then we are going to do is on click. We're gonna do some clicking handling in there, and then the button is called edit profile. That if that is not available, then they shouldn't be able to edit. They can do is if the user is not equal to current user, then they're gonna show them if they're following that user. So this is the part where I'm gonna do this. We add a conditional actually over here, so it's gonna get a little tricky. So here we're gonna do is edit profile to refresh this to make it look good. So we have this, and then if let's say if current user dot following dot includes ID, then we're going to show them. So if the user is following, if the current user, the logged in user is following this user who's visiting the profile, this will fix itself. So visiting this profile. So if Ron is logged in and he's visiting Harry's profile, is going to show you're following Harry. So this is what is happening here. So we're gonna do is not this. If that is following. So we're gonna do is button. It's gonna be blue, and then it's gonna say following. Good. If not, we are going to show them unfollow or follow. Follow right there. So that's a bit of a conditional work. So we have a couple of things going on. we need to fix the button, of course. It's a little messy. This will be flex of justify between item center, and then here we are going to be doing all that. Then we add a div in here. Wrap this in a separate div right there. This holding, we have the padding left, right, and then we have this. So we didn't do anything here. So this is what we need to do. Right there. So once you have this, the whole part inside the call span div, you should have it almost aligned in the right way. So we have the edit profile right there. Okay, so we have the styling in place. Now what we have to do is just loop over the user tweet. So we got the user tweet from here when we did the fetch data. So we have that stored in this state at the moment. So let's go ahead and start implementing that, which is going to be in this div right here. So in here, we're going to do is we're going to add a class as well. So empty of 6, so margin top of 6. And then we're going to start that JSX and user tweet. If it exists, then we're going to loop over dot map and the tweet, and then return div. And we'll have a class name of padding of 2, and for the key we're gonna add like tweet, almost similar thing we did previously. So once we have that, we need to bring in the tweet. So we have the tweet component coming in, then we need to pass in all the tweet that we are mapping over, and then we also need to set data. Remember, we have a set data props, but this time we're gonna set data using this. So it's a little bit more dynamic. That way we are able to refresh it as well. So let's go back. Okay, so look like we have an issue right here, and that is we can double check if our user tweet is coming off exactly as we want. So tweet, let's go to user tweet. It's because of it's not able to map in properly. So we can see how it's structured so far. So look like it's giving us everything. We just need to go to the data. So when we are doing that, we forgot to do the data in this part. So once we have that, it should be getting an array, and we should be able to loop in over the array. So we are getting the array, and we are able to loop in over the array as well. So that works, right? So that exactly what we need. So we fix that with the data dot data. Now that is working great. Now we need to implement a modal. Like once we click on the edit profile, it should open up a modal, and we should be able to edit on the modal. So let's jump into it and start coding that as well. So the first thing we're going to do is, let's say the button, the edit profile button. We want to create an on-click handler over here. So on-click, if you go to, we're going to turn modal open. So we also need to have a state for the modal. So we need to have like a use state snippet, and I'm going to call it open. It will be false at the beginning. So once we click on that, it's going to turn to open into true, right? So we need to click toggle on and off. We need to be able to do that. So we'll do a true. When you click on the edit, it always should be true. And we're going to put the modal right underneath this right here at the very end. So if it's open, we are going to be able to have a component called edit profile, and it should be open as well. So the edit profile will also take in a prop called open, and it will make sure you're able to set that as well. So inside that, we should be able to toggle it off. So we are passing that through. So that's out of the way. Let's do a component called edit profile, and we start managing. So right here on the component, we call a file called edit profile. There's a file as well, file CSX. Remember this one taking a set open set function. And here we're gonna be coding in the modal as well. So let's start coding this out. In here we're gonna do is a class. It's gonna be absolute, so it's going to modal going to open in top of the current page we are on. So we want to make it an absolute with a full. Height is equal to full as well. Top is 0. Left is 0. Background is transparent. Flex items center. Then we will add justify center as well. And inside that, we're gonna have another div with a class. Now this is going to be the modal by itself, so it's going to be with a little bit smaller. So pixel, like 600 pixel. Height will be same as well. Then BG slate of 200 rounded. LG would be a large rounded. Padding would be 8. Flex column. Gap would be 4, and relative on that one. And then we're gonna have a button. It's gonna be an X. It's a close button. A class of absolute. Top would be 3. Right would be 3. Cursor would be pointer. Let's see if we can see something on the application page. So we didn't import it yet, or right here. Edit profile, bring it in. So this is what it looks like right now. We need to make it more. So right now we are not able to close it because we passed this in. We need to turn this into false in here somewhere when we click on it. So this is what we're gonna be doing over here. So when you click on this button on click, we should be set open to false, right? So this is what we are trying to do. So when you click on it, turn it off, true, false, true, false. So we have the model working. Let's get to more functionality side of things. Last name would be font, bold, text, Excel, profile. Choose a new profile picture, and then here we're gonna choose some image handling, which we haven't done it yet. We need to implement Firebase in here, so we're gonna do that a little bit shortly. But before we do, let's type in some of the other things we're gonna do here as well. Delete account. We should be able to delete an account here, and we have a button. The class name is PG red 500. Text is white, and then padding rounded full. On click, we should be able to delete an account. This is the handler itself, so a little bit out of the way, but we're gonna fix that in a little bit. It should be all like inside here. We have a delete account button. We click on it, should be able to delete it. And we're gonna have some image in here where we can upload images, so they can upload their own images right there. So let's jump into the Firebase and implement that part of the section, and we will be right back with it. So on the Firebase, when you log into your console.firebase.google.com, you should be able to come into this console panel, and then you can add a project. So for our project, we're gonna name it Twitter clone. We don't want the Google Analytics, so turn that off. Create project. So on the Firebase side, we can use a lot of different things, but we are going to be using the storage only. So we are only going to be uploading our images into the Firebase, and we should have an idea on that. So I'll go get started in here. We are going to be using on the test mode because we should be able to read and write on here. So I'll just do next. Central location is fine for me. So we need to create a state for it so we can store it in our app and then upload it. So in here, we're going to do is I'll create use state. So bring that in from React. And then I'll do is const img set img is equal to use state. It's going to be null at first. And we also need to have like a progress. So Firebase have that functionality in there too. So we want to have that as well. So upload progress, like how far we are uploading the image. Set img upload progress. Use state should start with 0 and then should progress up the ladder. And then so now when we go down, you can see we have a space in here where we wanted to have the upload. So what I can do in here is we create an input. In this type, we want a file. We got some styling as well. Background of transparent, border plate of 500, rounded, and then padding of 2. We should be able to accept images files, so we want to make that sure we tell that too. So any kind of images file should do. And then on change, we want to make some progress on there. So e is equal to set img e.target dot files. It's going to be the first file that we upload. So after that, we should be good to implement our Firebase application in here. So Firebase, when we go back to our Firebase, we have like a Firebase.go/docs storage, web, and upload file. We'll find the documentation for uploading a file into our Firebase store. And they have like a nice example where we are going to be seeing it over here. And we are going to be using this part of this example. Have like the full-fledged feature in here, so we are going to do that. And we are also going to be installing the Firebase app into our application. So I'll open up this. We are in the client, and npm install Firebase. So we have the package installed, but before we start using this, we also need to configure our application to the Firebase store. So on the main file, I'm going to create a folder called, like here on the client, create a folder called firebase.js, and I'm going to put it in the source. So once we have that, what I'm going to do over here is we're going to go back to our Firebase application and the project overview. Here we're going to see how to add Firebase to your app. So we click on this. I'll create Twitter phone. Make sure I do that. And register app. We don't want the hosting. So we already did this part, and then we're going to copy all of this into our application. So once we have this, we are going to be exporting as well. Export default app. So we export the app initialization to be used in our application, and then console. So we should have that running, and we can start implementing our storage application. So we have that Firebase done. Close that out. I'll go back to edit profile. So inside this, we want to create a function called upload image, const upload img equal to, gonna pass in the file in here when we are doing the uploading on the input. And here we're gonna do a couple of things. So you can see we're gonna do some of this storage, and then we're gonna see how to uploaded. So they have like a progression bar. So we're gonna use that as well. So let's start here. Now first do our const storage. If you go to get storage and get storage, and this is from going to be from the app. So the app will be our app that we initialize on the Firebase. So whatever we exported, we should bring it in here. So let's bring that from the app from Firebase, right? So we have that in there, and then we're gonna do is we want to create some file name in here. So new, we can use new.date, get time, and then plus file name. So every file name is unique. And then we do const store. Now this is they're finding this from the upload. So when we're doing the image.upload right here on change, they're extracting the name from the file on from a desktop. So we're gonna have a storage ref after that. This is a reference, storage and file name. Then we're going to do is upload task. We go to upload by upload bytes resumable. Now that's the Firebase configuration, and you can see it on the doc as well. So right here. So we're doing this. Now, if we do this, it will be the same name for each file, but we want to be different. So we don't want to have a duplication. So we added this in, and we have the upload task as well. So make sure yeah, you should have that. So we're using storage ref and the file. So that's good. Next, we are going to be doing is start implementing the other actions as well, right here. So we can do is upload tasks. All of these we bought it from the Firebase storage. So we are using this upload task right now, and we're seeing what can we do. So state change, and then we're gonna have a snapshot after that. Snapshot of, let's say, of the progress. So const progress is equal to the calculation they did over here. So we're gonna do that. We can copy paste this actually. So let's see right here. And after this, we can have an error as well. And we should be able to get a downloaded data as well, because we need this data to be added into our profile picture. So we probably need to copy the whole thing. I think we should copy the whole thing just in case. So upload task on, and there you go. So we have the whole thing in there. So let's upload task on right here. So we have that copy pasted in. Now what does this doing is like, it's first it's uploading it, and then it's seeing if there's an error, and then it's also downloading it. So same file is downloading it and giving it to you. So here we can like change the profile. Here we can like download it and put it into our like profile picture. And here we are like basically uploading to our storage that we just opened up in here. So if we go back to the storage, the file should be uploaded in here. So one more time, let's see if this makes any sense. Again, we are using the Firebase configuration. We are doing some file upload in here with using a file name. We're using a storage where we're gonna store it. It's in our app, which we define on the Firebase.js. And then we're doing some configuration. And after that, on the upload task, we are doing a couple of different things. Some snapshot. We are making sure how far we uploaded it. But in here, we are going to be, instead of console logging, we already have a progress, upload progress. So we're just going to be updating it in there. So what we can do in here is set img progress upload. And we can do math.run, and we just add in the progress in there. So whatever progress is happening is updating this number in here that we can use in the front end as well. So after that, we have like a few snapshot in here. We need to add a default. That's why there's some error in here. So there we go. Gone. Same thing here as well. So the error, we don't need to handle any error. So we can like leave this empty. Like we don't need to do anything. Just leave this empty for now. There. And then we have like a download. So for the download, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be editing our user ID. Let's try uploading it and show you how it looked like actually. So let's add a progress bar as well in here before we sign that in. So image upload progress. If it's greater than 0, then we want some progress bar in here. So which is like uploading plus you're gonna do is image upload progress to like a percentage in here. So that's that. And if it's not uploading, you can just put the input in there. So that's the case. We are uploading it. So let's see how it works. Okay, let's try uploading it in our picture and how it shows up. To go back to our web profile, edit profile, choose a file. So choose a file, and then I'll go to my upload, and here I see a run picture. I'll upload that. Let's go back to our Firebase store. I refresh it, see if anything changes. Look like it's not uploading yet, so we might have some issues. So when we are uploading this, once we're done, we need to make some changes on the refresh use effect. So we're gonna bring that use effect as well. So right here. So yeah, this won't work right now because we don't have that implemented. It's just stays stuck in this because but we need to make some refresh changes as well. And this is where we're gonna bring in our use effect functionality. And right here, image and upload image right here is image. And then we want to do is image. Every time image changes, we want to make that happen. And we are firing that off at that time. So every time we are setting that into this, we want to, if the image exists, we uploaded some image, which is being changed, and then we want to fire up the use effect to upload image. So that's basically how it's going to work out. We were doing this, but we forgot to add this main functionality in, which we coded in with the Firebase. So now it should work out. Let's try that one more time. Cross that off. See, edit image, profile, run profile. So right there, it worked. This time it worked. So we have that 100 uploading 100%. That means we open up the console log. This is where it uploaded. File available at this URL, which is coming from right here, the download data. And let's go back to our source, refresh it. So we have our run profile uploaded into our Firebase. Now what we need to do is we need to do some handling over here so we can update our user and have a profile picture in our user. Like right now, the user doesn't have any profile picture. Is nothing in here, just some user and email address. What we can do is we can create something called a upload profile picture, and then we just add in the URL that is URL for this one right here. So that way we can refer to this image. So let's try doing that. So for here, we're gonna do is all good. We are going to add in our async in here because we're gonna do a try catch right here. And here we're gonna do is try and then catch. So log error. So for the try part, we're gonna do is update profile is equal to await. Let's do some Axios in here. So bring in the Axios. Let's go down there and do right here. Oh wait, Axios dot put. And in here we're going to do is users slash. Now in here we're going to do a current user.id, so we need that too. So use selector. Remember, not the user selector. It's a use selector. React-Redux, and then we are going to do this here. Current user use selector and do state dot user. So we have that current user selected from that part. So we have that. That's great. So what we are going to do is we're going to bring that in here. So current user dot underscore ID. So we find the right user, and then what we are going to pass in is profile picture is download URL right there. So the download URL is going to be the URL for the profile. We do that, and then after this try catch, we want to do is we want to dispatch that into our profile, change profile. We're going to create an action on the Redux. So we will go back to our Redux, and in the Redux, let's go to our slice, and then we're going to create another action called change profile. It's going to state an action. We need to pass in the profile images URL, and here we're going to do state dot current user dot profile picture. So we're going to create another profile picture, and is equal to action dot payload. So this is the action that's coming for the URL, and in here we're gonna need to bring in the dispatch as well. So here we're going to use dispatch, and here we're going to do is const dispatch is equal to use dispatch. We have that implemented. So in here, what we are going to do is export the change profile actions. In here, we need to bring that in as well. So change profile, import change profile from our slice. Redux, we just slice, and then dispatch. We're going to do is after the try catch down here, where we do the try catch right here. So after this, when we do that, we can do a dispatch change profile picture, and then we pass in the download URL, which is coming from here. So that's out of the way. Let's see if this is working as expected. Go back to our app, and we need to do one thing. We need to make sure that we view the profile picture here. So we have the profile picture in our user. We should be able to put it in here. So let's do that. It's going to be in here. So right here, we were supposed to have an image right here. So turn that on, and we're going to do is source. For the source, we are going to do is user profile. If it exists, then profile picture dot profile picture. So this is coming from our state we did previously. So user profile, if it exists, so you should have a profile picture. So you put that in there. And for the alt, you can see it like a profile picture. You can also add some class as well for this. Go to W12, height 12, and rounded would be full. So we're adding a conditional here, It should work. Let's upload. So we have that placeholder. Upload that to this 100%. Go back. Doesn't show up. Let's see what we named it one more time. Change profile is profile picture. So let's do that in here. Let's go back to our data and see if it added into our profile. So you may be logged in as Ron, so it's not there yet. Okay, so far we have seen is like when we upload a picture, it's not updating on our database, so it's not updating over here. Now, why is that? It could be a good time to do some debugging here. So when we're uploading, we are able to upload on the Redux. So our store get a data property, a profile picture property that have a URL that works, but it's not working on the database side of things. Why is that? Because remember, on the server side, when we initialize our server, we basically have a controller and we update it. So in the update functionality of our controller, we are updating anything that is inside the body. That's good. But the problem here is on the database itself, we don't have a space for profile pictures. So when you go to the model and user, we don't have a space for profile pictures. So that's why we are not able to put the data profile picture in here. So this is what we need to do in here. We can do a profile picture. Profile picture is equal to type of string, and it's not required at all. You can have a profile picture. You don't have a profile picture, that's totally fine. So let's go back. We restarted the server, it's good. Let's go back to our app. Let's delete this one and go back to our application one more time, and then let's just upload it 100%. And we have the profile picture coming in. Because we have a space for our profile picture right now, we have a profile picture coming in. So that's good. We are officially done with our edit profile. Now let's implement a delete functionality here. So for the delete functionality, let's go back to this right here. You have a delete, and let's do on click. Go to handle delete, and in the handle delete, we want to create a function for that. So right here, we do const handle delete, go to a function. Now this is going to be async await as well. So we will be going to our server at the same time. Delete profile is equal to await delete user slash current user ID, and that's good. Dispatch log out. So once we're done deleting, we should log out. We'll bring that in here as well. And after that logout, we're going to navigate to our homepage. So for that, we need something from the React router again. So we're gonna use navigate. So import use navigate from React router DOM, and in here let's initialize that as well. Navigate, go to use navigate, and we go back to here, and we do is navigate slash sign in. So we navigate to the sign in. So we have the Ron. We use a lot of example for Ron. So let's not delete Ron. So let's log out, and then let's do Harmony. And let's see here. We need to fix that as well. We're gonna do that shortly. So let's say she have some tut on Twitter now. So they have a tweet, but Harmony have a profile. Let's go to profile, edit, and delete the profile. Let's see what happens. deleted. Let's go to the database and check. Hermione profile is no more in here, and let's go to the tweet. Let's see, Hermione tweet is also being deleted, which is good. So it worked exactly as expected, but we still have some functionality that we need to work with. Let's fix this obvious one over here. Then we're gonna do the following functionality. So left-hand sidebar, let's see. So we need to finish this. So we have the current user. So what we do is current user dot username, and here the same thing as well. Let's see, this username. We have that. And for the following functionality, we need to go to the profile, and we need to do is like a handle follow. So we have a follow right here. We can do a handle follow in here. So I'll do is on click handle follow. If you are following the user, you should also be able to unfollow the user. So it's going to be the same thing. Handle follow, it should handle both of them at the same time. So that's done. Then we create a functionality on the top to do the handle follow. So here, let's see, const handle follow. Let's see, async. So now we're gonna first start with if the current user dot following includes ID. So the ID is coming from the parameter. So if the current user is following this user, we want to do some functionality, and it's going to be our server functionality, which is if it's not following, if the current user is not following, we should go ahead and do the follow. So let's do that. Here we're going to do const follow is equal to await actual start get /user /follow. Remember, we have this in the backend as well. It's pretty straightforward. And then we're gonna pass in the current user dot underscore ID. So it's been added to the array. And then we're gonna dispatch the following functionality as well on our Redux. So we have a track of the following on our use state management as well. So we're gonna do some dispatch in here to put it in our Redux. So we can do is dispatch, and then we can do dispatch is equal to use dispatch, and here we are going to do the dispatch following, and then we'll pass in the ID. The following is going to come in from our Redux, and here we're going to create a new reducer action and state action. And here it's going to look a little tricky. So if state dot current user dot following dot includes action dot payload, so the ID that we are passing in, if it's that, then we are going to be state dot current user dot following dot splice. We're gonna splice, and then state dot current user dot following. We're going to find index of that, and then we are going to be getting rid of that. So we're going to do is following ID is equal to payload dot action dot payload. So if that's the case, that works. Else we are going to do is state dot current user dot following. We're just going to push it into the array, which is action.payload. So what's happening here is we're filtering it out almost. So we are splicing it. If it's include, we are unfollowing it. And if it doesn't unfollow, if we don't need to unfollow, we just push it into the following. And we have that. We need to export it, and we need to input it over here. So let's see how that works out. And you also want another unfollow. So let's go back to the profile, and we have a following in here. If we need to implement an else too. So else is going to be, we need to unfollow. It falls into the else category. So I'll just copy paste this. And here we're gonna do this const unfollow. We're going to await axios.put /user /unfollow /id. And in here we are just going to id current user id. That's it. And then dispatch, we want to dispatch it again, and the dispatch will find it if we need to filter it out or if we need to add it into our database. So this should be put on a cat right there, working. So that was the problem. Let's go back to home. So Harry Potter should be coming in. That's great. Go to profile, we have a picture, we have Ron. Go back home, Harry Potter is there. Go explore, Harry Potter is there as well. Now go back to our database, refresh it. So Ron is following Harry, and Harry's follower should be Ron, which is perfect. So we are officially made our app as we want. There might be a few things we might want to change, which is every time we go back to different route, the home is still there. So we want to update that as well. So let's go back to the nav bar and try to figure out how we can update that. So nav bar, we have a home right here. So here we can do is a location. We can find the location, do include. If it include explore, we should say explore. If it include profile, we should say profile. We can do that. So let's bring in something from our React-Router DOM. So import use location from React-Router DOM. Once we have that, let's initialize that location. Let's go to use location dot path name. We have that, and then we do is go back in here, the home, and let's open up CSS right here, and location dot include profile. And in here we are going to do is we should have a user placeholder in here. If it's not, we should do is just type in home. That's it. So that's what we want. And here it should be wrapped into the h2. So take that, put it in here. Let's see if it's working properly or not. Its syntax is a little messy in here. Let's do that. So in this, we want to have a user placeholder. We should have some user data, and we can like play around with that. So let's create a component called user placeholder. Let's say user placeholder as well. And here, in here, what we want to do is we want to just display the data. So it's going to take in a couple of things. We want to make it dynamic. So user data, user data, set user data, set user, and going to have some params from the DOM as well. So import use location. That's for the DOM. We should use some use state and use the fact. Here, what we can do is const ID is equal to use params. Const location equal to use location dot path name, and we should have some user data that we are trying to pass in here. So user data, if it exists, then we should type in the username in there. And for fetching, we can do is like use effect. We can do the same thing, fetch data equal to async. And here we can do try catch as well. Const user profile equal to await axios get user find ID, and we can do is set user data user profile dot data, and every time we load, it's only going to be for ID. Here, make sure we call the function as well, and that's the placeholder. Basically, it's just taking the user, you just taking this, so user data, and just pass it in here, and it changes this once it load in to different route. So we are going to bring that in here, placeholder, and pass in that user data, that user data. You also need to create the state, so user data should be user data. And here we are going to be doing is make that state available. So const user data set user data is equal to use state. It should be null at the first. So let's put that in here. So to go back, we are in the home with the profile, just shows the profile. We go explore, still at the home profile, it shows the profile. So this is what we're trying to do in here. So we just use the name display. If it's on the profile page, it should display that. You could try adding one more. So if here location dot include explore, then I should have explore. Let's see if that works. Home, explore, and then profile, display the profile name instead. So what that doing is, if it's a profile user, it's just fetching the user data and putting in the username there, and then if it's explore, it's showing the explore. If it's a home, it's home. It's the last part. Explore is everyone you're following, should be appearing over here, and profile is like that. So that works out really great. I think we're at the end of this tutorial. Let's try setting some things up. So we have this, remember we deleted Hermione. Let's just create a Hermione profile. Let's gmail.com, password Hermione, sign up. So Hermione just signed up, new fresh profile. First thing she does, she goes to the profile, upload an image, 100%, image uploaded. So use effect taking the place, it's refresh. So now it's good. Say, Harry, Ron, where are you guys? So tweet, that's the first tweet Hermione does. And then Hermione goes to the explore, and there she finds like, oh, Harry's Ron is there, and they're like tweeting. So she goes to Harry's profile, picture is not there, it's good. She follows Harry, she then goes back and then follows, she goes to Ron's profile, she Ron tweeted on her profile picture, follow Ron, she goes back to home, and there follow profile picture appear. She liked the Harry profile, Harry's tweet, she liked this, she liked that, she liked Ron, and then she goes to the profile, she sees our tweets is there 1 minute ago, go home, you see 3 hours ago, 23 days ago, 1 minute ago. So that's the basic of our tweet application. Again, just to recap, this is not a full-fledged application. There could be a lot of mistake along the way, so make sure this is a tutorial to learn this technology, to learn React, to learn Redux, to learn Node.js on the backend, so to learn how to build a server, and then how to make those two communicate to each other. So this is like a learning project. So make sure you comment down below how you like this tutorial series, how you like building the Twitter clone, and feel free to have this have it a go on this, and then use your own touch to it, like you use your own imagination, change some styling here and there as you like, and put this in a resume. Maybe if you're trying to apply to a new job, you can show this project to the recruiter. They might be really impressed by what you built. So just follow this along. Hope you learned a lot through this. And again, my channel is pretty new. A lot of guys are not subscribed yet, so make sure you hit the subscribe, follow me. I'll keep bringing in this awesome tutorial again and again in the future. So make sure you hit the like button, hit the bell button, comment down below how you like this tutorial so far, what do you want to see in the future, how did yours turn out, did you make any changes to your we will have a great time talking about this. So yeah, and also join my Discord channel if you want. And so take care, see you on the next video.